And you are, of course, still tuned into the nation's #1 talk news and sports station. This is 99.3 Nigeria Info. Good morning to you and welcome. It is the Breakfast News Digest with Tolu and Dapo. Okay, so this morning we want to look at the issue of security, but of course jumping off with, again, struggling for the word, the commemoration or the anniversary of April 14th, 2014. And now, of course, today is April 13th, a Freaky Friday, Friday the 13th. But this would be happening tomorrow. Of course, we're not going to be here tomorrow, so we decided to have the conversation today. Now, if April 14th, 2014 doesn't particularly strike a note for you, let me quickly remind you. It was on the night of April 14th into the early morning of April 15th, 2014, that 276 female students were kidnapped from the government secondary school in the town of CHIBOK in Borno State, Nigeria. Now, responsibility for the kidnapping was claimed by Boko Haram, which identified itself as an Islamist organization and has now been labeled an extremist Islamic terrorist organization based in the northeastern part of the country. 57 of the schoolgirls managed to escape over the next few months, and some described their capture and appearances at international human rights conferences. Also, a child born to one of the girls and believed by medical personnel to be about 20 months old at the time was also released. Now, there have been, throughout the course of the past 4 years, one or two girls here and there, but in all, people are still waiting for about 100 and something girls to be found or to be rescued. Over time, there have been conversations about negotiations, payments for ransom for their return, but the conversation around that has now been complicated with the recent abduction that happened in Dapo. Many of us will also remember that there is still one young woman missing from the Dapo kidnapping. So this morning, we'll start looking at 4 years later from the kidnapping in Chibok. What have we learned? What has the movement, Bring Back Our Girls, which is the primary driving force of the advocacy around the Chibok kidnappings, what have been the steps they've taken? And of course, then you'd asked to jump to a conversation on security. So we'll make contact right now with Yemi Ademolekun. She is the executive director of EIE, Enough is Enough Nigeria, that has worked with BBOG and also part of the group as well. And I think every Saturday here in Lagos, they do hold, do I say Remembrance, a memorial? They're there. Hello, Yemi, good morning. Hello, Yemi, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, fantastic. Dapo is always also here as well.
Good morning, Yemi. How are you doing?
Dapo, how are you? What's so clear? Nice.
What can we say? Technology is on our side today. All right, so Yemi, let's get straight into it. So tomorrow we'll make 4 years since over 200 and something girls were kidnapped from Chibok, and over the years we've had some returned, some rescued, some found, as it may be. But for many people, the current status of the numbers is something many people may not currently know. So what are the numbers that we have currently right now?
So we are still looking for 112. 112 have not been accounted for. So 276 were abducted, 57 escaped, 3 were found, 103 were released through negotiations by the federal government, and we're still missing 112.
Okay, so of the 112 that are still missing, do we have, is it going to be part of negotiations? Because I know with Bring Back Our Girls, there has been a lot of conversation as to whether it should be ransom paid, negotiation, and if some were returned on negotiation, what do we know in terms of how the government is working towards the 112?
Our policy has always been that government is in the best position to know, because they have all the facts.
Yes.
All we know is that girls were abducted, and we know that Boko Haram has shown videos that they have them, so we know Boko Haram has them. And we also have information from the girls who have come back. So they have given a range of information. For example, they said some of their fellow students are dead. So like the Dapo girls, who have said 5 of them died. Chibok, the federal government has not actually stated that for the Chibok girls. So because of that, even the 112, we know some of them are dead based on the testimonials of their students, but the government hasn't come out to say that. So we're still sticking to 112 until there's official news to the contrary.
So in terms of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, what has been happening now? Sometimes when the issue comes up, there will be comments, and people feel like the advocacy of the group is not as loud as it was before, you're not as vocal, you're not as visible in terms of the advocacy that the group has sustained for the CHIBOK girls. What has been going on with the Bring Back Our Girls movement?
People who say that are correct, for the simple fact that we also live in a world that wants interesting news.
And up to date.
Or up to date, exactly. Not necessarily up to date, but interesting.
Like new.
So, new, exactly. So, when you have negotiations that people are released, then that's new. There's new stuff. There's new footage. You showed the girls hugging their parents. The federal government has a statement. So, there's a lot of activity around that. But for Abuja family that meets every day at Unity Fountain, it's not news in that sense. For the Lagos family that meets every week on Saturdays, that's also not news. So people, because it's not in their face as in mainstream media or online media, people don't necessarily remember
that it's still going.
Exactly. Which is why, even though we've gotten criticized for it, we take the advantage of the anniversary of the abductions to make a bit more noise, just to remind people that there are girls still missing. I wear a CBOG badge, and every day, if I'm in a public space, without fail, somebody will say, you're still wearing this thing. And the girls back. They've got all of them back now. So there's a way that the news of the release now dominates the consciousness in terms of the status of the girls. So yeah, it's a constant battle, but for us, we just need to keep putting it back. So, and also the Dapo case as well, if you notice, because when the story about Leah came out that she wasn't returned because of her faith, there was a lot of buzz, pray for Leah, night vigil for Leah. Leah has not returned, but all that buzz has died. Nobody is calling prayer meeting anymore because it's just the way we are as human beings. But then it was something to do. But 1 week has passed. We have been on the CHIBOK case for 4 years. So it shows you what can happen in 4 years if only in 2-3 weeks people have lost the steam to pray for Leah.
So, as of right now, the Abuja group still meets every day at Unity Fountain, right? And the Lagos group meets once a week, Saturdays, correct?
Yes.
So, what happens at the meetings?
We basically just get updates. So, for people who are in touch with the parents, updates as well with the construction of the school. So in CHIBOK, we were following. It took a while. I forget the details, but it took a while for the school where the girls were abducted to be
rehabilitated.
Yeah, exactly. Reconstructed. It was started just during the 2015 elections. That's when the foundation was laid, and then it went silent for a while. But then construction has now continued. We talk about the low enrollment of students in schools in the Northeast based on what is happening. So parents are just like, you know what, I want my child alive. So all these schools, hold yourself. So we have a lot of, there have been a few studies done, but the state governments have been very reluctant to talk about it in terms of showing clearly that number of students being enrolled in school has dropped. And so the interventions in that regard. We got a report recently that the morgue at the University of Maiduguri is full to overflowing with soldiers. So now there are few people trying to look into what can be done, how can we intervene. One of the more, for me, it's sort of testament of this journey is that a lot of people have set up organizations from their learnings from Bring Back Our Girls. So just the whole process of realizing that you have IDP camps where children are not going to school, someone like Buki Shonibare started School in a Bag and just basically provided facilities so even in the camps they can get learning. So people are doing intervention, healthcare interventions, education interventions, raising awareness about girl-child education, and all of that has come out of people realizing the state of the things of activities in the Northeast from this Bring Back Our Girls movement. So for me, it's a wonderful outcome, despite the terrible circumstances, but it's a good outcome that people are acting based on what they found out.
Now let's talk about the advocacy part of this. Now, regardless of what the criticisms may be, Bring Back Our Girls have shown that Nigerians can do sustained, consistent advocacy, and I think that's one of the things. If we're advocating for change or for demands, for social demands for ourselves, that's one of the things that we take away from this. So, in terms of being part of the advocacy and how long it has sustained itself, what are the things that BBOG has learned that you think others in advocating for other social issues or social change can also learn as well?
And I think the main thing is really consistency. So Bring Back Our Girls has now been the longest campaign really on any particular issue in Nigeria. The parallel is pro-democracy, which was off and on depending on what was happening. But in terms of a group of people consistently saying the same thing, Bring Back Our Girls is the longest. And then also different elements of it. So the protests, we've done sort of technical work in terms of if you rescue people, how do you verify where they're from? How do you rehabilitate them? How do you settle them back at home? There's a whole flow chart that Bukky Shonibare, for example, developed on behalf of the family. We've started advocacy around the missing persons register.
Yes, I was going to ask about an update for that.
Yeah, Nigeria doesn't have one. So right now it's actually owned by government. So everybody that also thinks that we are forever fighting government, yes, we expect them to find the growth, because that's their job.
Yeah.
But we also engage, and when there are areas that we can work together, we do. So we're actually working with government on the missing persons register. And Miriam Uwais, who was one of the leading persons in BBOG, who's now in government, is actually owning that process. It's still in the pilot stage, so we've gotten Red Cross involved. I forget one other international agency to help map out the process. So if somebody is reported missing, who owns it? How do the police interact? Where is the database hosted? How do you... So if you then find the person, they can take them off the list and things of that nature.
Okay.
So I think those are the different areas. So in addition to street protests, letter writing, the more confrontational parts that people see, there's also the engagement and actually getting real work done and engaging as much as government is willing to. It's challenging for government to engage, and we've had that with both the Jonathan and Buhari administration, because they just see us as adversarial. And the point is, we're just telling you need to do your job and communicate about what it is you're doing, how you're doing it, what do we need to know. Parents, there was one of the girls, before I forget, who was found in January. When we did a courtesy call to General Obasanjo, I think 2-3 weeks ago, her father said she hasn't seen her daughter.
The daughter is still with the authorities.
Yeah. So how are you keeping someone's child for 4 months? First of all, Boko Haram, then you as government are keeping the child for 4 months.
And it's 4 months without information.
Exactly. Okay, you might want to debrief her, but for 4 months, really? Even if it's for him to go, give her a hug and bounce. Really. So those are the things that we still are hard on government on. That look, yes, we know there is a war. Yes, we know Boko Haram is probably more equipped than your soldiers. But you can't have soldiers die in the line of service and leave their bodies in a morgue. You can't have children be returned and its father is saying, I haven't seen my child. So how is that any better than the child that is in captivity? At least maybe there's comforting that we have...
The child is on the right side right now.
At least, or a general idea of where the child is. But you can't say more than that.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the parents and families that some of the Chibok girls left, or of the Chibok girls that have not returned. I know even before the larger number was rescued and returned, we had heard of deaths of parents who sadly passed away without knowing whether or not their children were going to be found safely. Now, in terms of the parents and the general Chibok community, what's been happening in that regard? Is the community itself, has it been successful in rebuilding? How are the parents taking things? Sadly, again, have more parents lost their lives as they wait to hear word about what happened to their children?
Unfortunately, I don't have a current count of how many parents have died. The last I remember, I believe, was 9, if I'm not mistaken. But I can get that number. But people, they are continuing with their lives as best as they can. The last I saw of any group of parents to the visit what they did to General Obasanjo. And their plea was just that government should bring back their daughters and provide information so that they know what has happened. And that's been a consistent complaint throughout the process. Some of the parents there's been some backlash with some parents in being associated with Bring Back Our Girls. And we even got the report, the University of Maiduguri lecturers. I think one of the family members said they were harassed for associating with Bring Back Our Girls. And the fact was the father of one of the professors. And I was like, well, they're the only ones I see making noise. So why would I not associate with them? Because I want my child back. So you also see that kind of dynamic. But, they do the best that they can. One exciting thing for us, and you can use the word exciting, but just a show of good faith, really. CHIBOK girls went on a solidarity visit. Some CHIBOK parents to visit
to Dapchi.
Dapchi's community, and this was the morning of the day that the girls were released. So though bittersweet for them, it was really good. The Dapchi parents appreciated the visit. Now the Dapchi parents are going to CHIBOK tomorrow for the 40th anniversary.
Wow.
Just also as a way to show solidarity as well.
So is Bring Back Our Girls adding the Dapchi situation to the advocacy going forward?
It's always been, and people always make this mistake. Now, CHIBOK girls are just a symbol of
They're the face.
people who have been abduction. Yeah, and that ties to the missing persons register. They're the only ones we know their names, and I can show you a picture. But there's so many people who've been abducted or killed or whatever across the Northeast, even across Nigeria, that we don't know their names, and we're terrible with things like that as a country. Human lives almost mean nothing. So people die, and we just move on.
Sure.
So CHIBOK girls, we can actually tell you Maimuna, Rose, whatever their different names, I can tell you who they are. I can tell you who their parents are. I can point you to a picture. So because of that, even though they triggered sort of this awareness, we're saying it's the CHIBOK girls and everybody in captivity, but I don't know everybody in captivity.
You don't know the names, you don't know where they were taken from, how long they've been gone.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's also part of what we've been telling the federal government. You will come back and say you rescued 200 people. Okay, what are their names? We don't
When
know.
were they taken?
Where were they abducted from? We don't know. Where were they taken from? We don't know. So you brought them from where? And you returned them to where? And so today, we've been on this thing since the Jonathan administration. Even this administration has done nothing about that. And we're hoping the missing persons register can help streamline that. So when you say you brought back 200 people, you can say you brought back 20 children, 30 women, 50 men, 50 of them were from Dapchi, 10 from CHIBOK. You know, and to put some context to it, not just numbers. They're human beings with lives.
Yeah.
So that's what we keep saying, that it's CHIBOK girls are just the face, but it's everybody in captivity.
All right.
So that,
go ahead.
No. That's just one. So it's CHIBOK girls now. I mean, Dapchi, we know Leah's name.
Yeah.
So Dapchi girls also are there because we have a name and we have a story, unlike we do for the others.
All right. So finally, Yemi, let's just ask now. So tomorrow is the commemoration of the anniversary. What events are lined up? If people want to take part in, what do you want the public to continue to do in terms of the advocacy, the sustained advocacy for the Bring Back Our Girls, for CHIBOK, for Dapchi, for those we don't know their names and we don't have their pictures, but who do happen to be captives in the midst of this war that Nigeria is currently fighting with Boko Haram?
So it actually in Lagos it starts today. Actually, let me start. It starts today. There's a march to the United Nations. We leave Falomo at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
And it's basically raising awareness. UN is sort of the umbrella body for all nations in terms of national, sort of global issues. So it's a symbolic march to UN for them to raise help. Boko Haram is a terrorist organization. There's a war against terror globally. So there, UN as the global body raising that awareness. That's one. And then walk to Falomo, then back. Walk from Falomo to the UN office in Ikoyi, then back to Falomo for an interfaith vigil. Pastor Itwa Godalo from Trinity House will do the Christian prayers. And Imam, we had a change of Imam last night, we'll do I'll mention it before I sign off. We'll do the Muslim prayers. And we'll usually do a roll call of the girls as well, the girls that are still missing. And tomorrow in Abuja, there will be a lecture. It's called the second annual CHIBOK Girls Lecture. Pastor Tunde Bakare will be giving that lecture. It will be aired live on Channels TV, so you can tune in to watch at 11 a.m. And in Lagos, because we normally meet on Saturdays, air it at Falomo.
Okay, so it'll be open air. Okay.
Open air, yes. You can watch and listen as you walk past tomorrow.
Okay.
In New York, there are prayers today, Muslim prayers today. There are Sabbath prayers for the Jewish community tomorrow, and then there are Christian prayers for the Christian community on Sunday. The CHIBOK community is doing something tomorrow in CHIBOK in the school. I don't unfortunately have the details of that, but if I do, when I get them, I will
pass them across. Okay.
All right. The Imam is Imam Tajuddin Adebayo of Palomo Policeman.
Okay.
He will be there this evening as well.
All right. Thank you so very much for just giving us an update on what has been going on with this in this regard. We appreciate you, and of course the work that the Bring Back Our Girls movement has also done in this regard as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, so as she said, there is a lecture that will be taking place tomorrow, but here in Lagos there is a walk to commemorate the 4th year anniversary of the kidnapping of the girls. The activities start today, but in Lagos, but in Abuja and New York tomorrow, the activities will be tomorrow. But we've taken it from the Bring Back Our Girls aspect, and after the timeout, we're going to take it from the security side of things. What has the federal government learned in the time after the Chibok kidnappings? Dapchi happened, and many people felt that with a repeat of Dapchi meant that Boko Haram, depending on whichever faction you're looking at, still had the capacity, was still able to move with trucks, with people for miles upon miles, and there were still security lapses in what needed to be done. How do we move forward? And I do appreciate the Bring Back Our Girls movement for the beginnings of a national missing persons register. I think that is so critical. You find a lot of the times when somebody is missing or hasn't come home, it's the families that have to push this thing by themselves. You might run into a picture on social media, help, my father hasn't been home in 12 hours, or we haven't seen. So it almost feels like there's no coordination. And I applaud them for that, because I know about the missing persons register in the U.S. Then there's a register for children under 16 as well, specifically. Then they work with what do you call them? People who use technology. Oh my God, it just froze. But then they can age the pictures. They work to age the pictures, and they say that this is what the person might look like 10 years later. So a missing persons national registry is a critical thing. And I'm happy she also talked about the point that many people feel like, why is it only Chibok that the group seems to focus on? But it's not. And she has a valid point in saying Chibok is the only ones that they have names and they have faces, and they can talk about parents, and they can talk about a hometown. And even last week when the army said they had rescued 100 and something, there were like some children and a few men and more women. You're thinking, like Yemi said, 100 and something that were taken from where? When were they taken? And when you work to rehabilitate them, where are you going to take them back to? So there's still a lot of questions, and you would think that we would work harder to sort of, even if all the girls haven't come back, to solve some of the things that this situation has thrown up.
Yeah, I think to a very large extent, Tolu, Nigeria need to, or maybe I should say government need to begin to have, put human feelings into everything that we do. The value that we place on lives in Nigeria is second to none. I think to a very large extent we've become almost completely dehumanized. We don't have these feelings anymore. We only feel that people died when the number is very huge. Even when one person is missing in all the climate, you find out that the attention that is given from the neighborhood to organizations that will go into the search or organize the search, programs and all of that for the missing person, you will see the intensity, you will see the seriousness, you will see the consistency that they deploy to ensure that they get this person or have an update on what has happened to this person. Sometimes they find these people already dead, but the fact that they found them enough brings closure for everybody. Yeah. The agencies, the community, the parents. It brings closure. Up until now, Chibok, the parents of the Chibok girls, many of them don't have closure. From what Yemi said, 112 girls are still missing. Now the dead ones, their parents
don't know.
They don't even know. Sometimes probably in their subconscious they may be thinking that maybe one day,
but just holding on hope.
Exactly.
And I've seen families, I've seen families that will leave bedrooms the exact way the room is when the child disappeared. And if the child sometimes does come back, that room is still there. Meanwhile, the child has become an adult and gone through many issues. Sometimes if they don't come back, it becomes, it's an almost indelicate thing to say, but it becomes an obstacle for the family being able to move
move
forward,
on, yes.
holding on. And then because you never see a body and you're never told that we suspect your child is dead, you're always holding on to that last bit of
closure.
hope. And sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes it can stop you from moving on. But how do you move on if you don't know? And there is so much truth in the fact that sometimes knowing that your child in this situation is dead forces you to start the process of closure.
No, we don't even have, a means of identifying Nigerians. We don't have any identification. So when people get missing, there is no record. I mean, there's nothing to show that, something happened to somebody somewhere at this particular time, and no tracks.
Which is why 4 years later, why haven't we done better in that regard? We'll take this up with the security experts right after the quick time out. Ben Okezie will be joining us, so make sure you stick around. It's still the Breakfast News Digest on the nation's #1 talk news and sports station.
Hi, I'm Tunji Andrews, and this is 1,000 Naira note. To some people, this represents a meal, or a few bottles of beer. To other people, this is 4 units of Dangote cement shares, or 21 units of GT Bank stock, or the startup capital needed to start that pure water business. Whoever you are and whatever your needs might be, we have you covered on the Money Business and Economy Show on 99.3 Nigeria Info, weekday mornings at 9 a.m. Cause it's not really the amount of money that matters. It's usually what you do with it. Cheers.
Hi guys, my name is Tolu Balogun. I currently host Morning Crossfire. I'm here to tell you that you have to get your PVC. Your permanent voter's card is your power, and in your hand you hold the power to make any necessary change that you want in Nigeria. Please participate, because elections are not the end of democracy and governance. The highest office in the land is the office of the citizen. You and I are citizens of Nigeria. Get your PVC. Your PVC, your voice.
Hi, my name is Tunji Andrews, and I run the SME show on 99.3 Nigeria Info every Monday at 10 a.m. You see, every second Monday of the month, we have what we call the Pitch It Mondays, where if you're an entrepreneur, you have a business idea, but you need investment into your business, you're able to pitch it to investors who will be with me in the studio. You'll be able to pitch your ideas in 45 seconds or less. And if you can catch their attention, you get the critical investment you need into your business. So rehearse what you're going to say, make sure you're able to catch their attention in 45 seconds or less. You might get that investment into your business.
We know what's happening everywhere and every time. Giving you the latest happenings in Nigeria and around the world. The Breakfast News Digest, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
And this is still Breakfast News Digest with Tolu and Dapo. Tomorrow will mark the 4th year anniversary that 276 female students were kidnapped from the government secondary school in the town of CHIBOK in Borno State. Now, just before the break, we spoke to Yemi Ademolekun. She's the executive director of EIE, Enough is Enough, and also a member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. She actually helps them lead the weekly Saturday meetings that they hold at Faloma. If you're interested, you can go there. They meet every Saturday, even in rain. They meet every Saturday at Faloma Bridge, just to keep the candle burning, just to keep the remembrance going on until the girls are brought back. So we'll make contact now with Ben Okezie. He's a security expert, and let's look at what we as a nation have learned after the situation with CHIBOK. Many would have said never again, but then Dapchi happened. So let's continue the conversation. We'll also remember that in May 2016, one of the missing girls, Amina Ali, was found, and she said that the remaining girls were also there, but that 6 of them had somehow died. A further 21 girls were freed in October 2016, while another one was rescued the next month. Another was found in January 2017. With 82 more girls freed in May 2017. And there are reports that one girl was rescued January 2018. So the tally now runs to about 112 girls from CHIBOK remaining missing in the conversation. All right, let's make contact with our guest and we will continue. Hello.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Ben Okezie. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning.
All right. So we just want to look at the security side of 4 years after the CHIBOK kidnapping, and of course what we as a country have learned in terms of security in those situations. But for me, it's always really important to start a little bit backwards. While 200 and something girls were kidnapped in a very audacious and daring kidnapping, Boko Haram had been using that style for many years. They had been kidnapping young men, young women, and girls as well, and it just never seemed to register with us as much as with the CHIBOK situation because of the numbers. So what can we take away from the fact that Boko Haram has somehow been prolific in this kidnapping situation for a while, even before CHIBOK and even after CHIBOK?
Well, thank you for asking me to talk. You see, the country we are in is a country that does not learn from the past. So many issues have happened that you find that this country, those who are ruling us, have not, looked back to learn a lesson. But we were told that if you look back, you know that what has happened before, you guard yourself so that such thing will not happen again. The CHIBOK issue, 14th to 15th of April 2014, so when that thing happened, it shocked the whole country. But it's unfortunate. Even when the thing happened, when that incident happened, the school was unable to account for the number of the students that came. The police was unable to tell us the number of students that are there. Even despite the fact that they lined up parents to ask them to bring the pictures of their children to come and authenticate. Yet, we are still dabbling between, one brick and the other wall to know what here exactly the figure is. It's international bodies that came to start telling us the number of children who were in the school who came to take that particular physics exam. And now another one, after 4 years happened, which means we've not learned anything, and the same politics will continue to play. They will come and talk certain things, we will do this, we will do that. Our president just said that he's going to end. So how many must we be hearing these things, put these things on the ground? The CHIBOK girls now, up till now, we don't even know how many of them have been released. We don't even know how many of them have been released. Even cannot cite them to say, let's talk to them and what was their experience in where they kept them, so that they can, we remember in those days when policemen arrest armed robbers, they will bring them before journalists. Journalists will interview them. They will start talking of what happened. You can see that you hardly hear of armed robbery today, because most of these things are closed. But this one, they shrouded in such secrecy that you start wondering whether what we are seeing is not the hand that he saw, and it's just unfortunate. Just unfortunate. We have not learned anything. Even our security people have not learned anything.
Okay, Mr. Ben, going forward as an expert in security, what would be your advice for the government in really looking at a framework of providing the type of security that Nigeria needs, especially across our weak borders?
We have an very expansive border, and
Hello, Mr. Ben. Okay. Hello. All right, let's see if we can't make contact with Ben Okezie one more time and get a continuation of that conversation. But official numbers are this: 276 abducted, 57 escaped, and those ones were able to escape in the ensuing weeks. 3 were found, 103 released, and there are also reports that 5 infants were released as well with the girls that were released. And then the number says, or the figures say, that 112 are still currently missing. Mr. Ben, are you back with us? Okay, hold on. This is interesting.
hello.
Hello. All right. Thanks for joining us again, Mr. Ben. We lost you the other time.
Yeah.
All right. So you can take it off from there.
Yeah. They did some report, and in the report they made some, suggestions, so that this type of thing will not happen again. But the new government that came in, petitioned that particular report, and then that's why you can see another one happened, because we have thought that government is a continuum, but we have seen that it's not, But the thing is that there are so many things, that should be done. We have variety of security apparatus in the country. We have the police, which is actually for internal security, and assisting the police, we have the civil defense, and then we have other security guards, majorly is the police and the civil defense that have guns. So people believe that once you don't have a gun, you cannot effectively carry out any issue of security. But the thing is that there is a way you can be trained, and you will even be more effective than the person who is having gun, because you'll be more proactive than the person who has gun. But the thing is, if we can, we can do some of the needful. Security costs money. Our people, Nigerians themselves, we have always been advocating that when you see something, say something. People don't always want to say something because they are afraid that when they say something, the security agencies will now use them, and then bring them into the situation. Look at the breakthrough in Lagos recently about a place where they were doing another stuff and all those things, and that has been going on. Some people are the neighbors of those of that person. When you see something, you say something. Apart from that, we believe that schools, you should face schools. A school should not be left open like that. A school should have a gate. A school should have a security guard. Well trained, not malam, not all this things. And the school should have a CCTV. These are the little things that schools should, because they collect money. So they should use part of the money and invest inside the security of that school. A school should have register. How can a school like that, and they say it's government secondary school, they don't know the number of girls that came to come and sit for exam.
Oh, we seem to be having some technical difficulties right now. We will try one more time because we are down to the last 10 minutes of the show. One more time to get in touch with Mr. Ben. It does look like, there are those who have conspiracy theories or alternative thoughts concerning what went down in CHIBOK and possibly again as well what went down in Dapchi. And it has raised many, many questions for people. I think more questions than the government has on any side, whether it's the Buhari administration or the Jonathan administration, has been successfully able to answer. But beyond the questions, we still know children are missing, parents are grieving. What do we do to move on from there? All right, Mr. Ben?
Network.
All right, we apologize for that. So let's apologize on behalf of the network. Okay. All right, sir.
They are not helping Nigerians at all.
Okay, let's quickly go on here. Now, security experts have actually been saying over time that we do not have technology, intelligence-based policing, and providing security across the country. I mean, we have had cases of a lot of schools that were probably, people went there and went away with, students in Lagos State, for instance, and this is happening around so many other states in the Federation. Now, how come, experts like you probably have not been engaged or consulted to assist government in providing solution to the security problem? We have the Dapchi girls that we're talking about. We have the CHIBOK girls. Many of them are not, returned yet. And yet, do you think government is doing enough to actually provide the type of security that is needed in the country at the moment that will eventually guide against a repetition of having to have girls abducted in schools and the likes of them?
There was a time that the police took the mantle, and then they were going to school. I think that was the time of the PRO, when people, they were going from one school to the other, teaching them about security. So I have gone to so many schools to also talk about security issues, and then, I also remember in those days, during the time of Dapo, we used to have policemen, who would be in front of a school, a very big school like this, they would be sending a policeman with them small shop, you won't know it's a policeman. He's there getting information about what is happening around that school. We have such things that were, but suddenly all those things were scrapped off. You still have some of the policemen who handle such things, even in big institutions. You will see them, I remember there's a former police commissioner in Lagos when he was in charge of, he was a DPO in Sabo. He had to go to Lagos State University, University of Lagos, to get students there, So he was collecting information. All these things are things that police were doing and the DSS were doing, but suddenly some of these things have, flew off and people are no more doing it. These are ways of, getting information. I could remember also in this when we were in Concord, SSS will send the men to inside Concord to come and be a staff of Concord. In the editorial staff, they'll be journalists. You know that if you go to press conferences, most times you will see some people will say, you will wait for other people to have mentioned their own institution. Media houses. Then he will just come. He will say, I'm covering Avengers newspaper, and you will know that there is nothing like Avengers in the newspaper. He's just there to get what the information is. That's some of the things they were doing in those days. They were innovation and innovative. But the thing is that all these things have died down. Nobody is doing all those things again. But what I'm saying is that even we as Nigerians, when you are living in your neighborhood, you should know what is happening there. You should be able to communicate to security agencies, But the thing is, how close? What is the rapport? What is the closeness between the security agencies and members of the public? All right. Are they friendly? They are not. They are not friendly because even when you go there, the type of harassment you will receive, you will not want to do such a thing again. For them. So everybody is on his own. That's why the country is just going to wait.
Okay, Mr. Ben Okezie is a security expert. We are very delighted to have you join us to talk about security matters today. And we would like to talk to you sometime when we have security matters to discuss. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Lagos, 5 minutes at the top of this. I was going to say 6 o'clock hour. 5 minutes at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
session for women in all sectors of the economy.
And on that note, we wrap things up for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, again, great conversations and more interaction and engagement on the very big issues happening here in Nigeria. And, of course, international issues as we connect those dots. Thank you for joining us on the Breakfast News Digest with Tolu and Dapo for this week. My name is Tolu Adelaide Balogun. You guys have a great weekend. Be blessed. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. That's not a lot of things. Dapo.
All right. See you next week. My name is Dapo Banja. Thanks for being with us.